The jungle was alive with strange sounds. Bright blue leaves whispered in the warm wind, and glowing insects danced between tall red trees. The sky above was dark green, a sign of storms coming soon. Far away, a silver spaceship rested on the ground, half covered in vines. Its engines hissed and smoked like a dying animal. Inside that ship, a young alien girl sat quietly near the metal door. Her name was Lyra. Her skin was rough and gray like stone. Her eyes were too large for her small face, and her body looked weak compared to the others of her kind. The crew of the ship never let her forget it. They called her names: monster, mistake, ugly one. Today their words hurt more than ever. Captain Varric, the leader of the alien crew, shouted to the others, "We move now. The jungle is unstable. No more delays." Lyra stood up quickly. "Captain, please," she said softly. "Let me come." "I can help." Varric turned to her with cold eyes. "You? Help? You can barely walk in this gravity." He looked at her as if she was dirt. "Stay here. You'll only slow us down." "But—" Lyra tried to speak, but another alien, a tall female soldier, laughed. "Let her stay. The jungle will keep her company." Everyone laughed. Lyra's hands shook as she held the side of the ship. She wanted to cry, but she didn't want them to see. Outside, thunder cracked through the green clouds. The ground trembled. Something big was moving in the distance, crushing trees like grass. The ship's sensors beeped wildly. "Captain," a soldier yelled. "Something's coming this way." Varric didn't wait. "Everyone inside now. Prepare for liftoff." Lyra ran toward the ship's ramp, but the door was already closing. "Please don't leave me!" she screamed. No one looked back. The engines roared, the metal ramp shut, and the silver ship rose slowly into the air. Hot wind burned against her skin as it lifted higher and higher, disappearing through the thick clouds. Then there was silence. Lyra stood alone in the middle of the glowing jungle, the wind tugging at her hair. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it in her ears. She whispered, "They left me. They really left me." The ground under her feet was soft and wet. Strange plants turned their heads toward her as if watching. She stepped back, her legs shaking. Somewhere deep in the forest, something growled, long and low, like thunder mixed with a scream. She looked around for shelter. Behind her, the crash site was full of smoke and sparks. One side of the ship's landing area had collapsed into the mud. There was no way to follow them, no way to call for help. Her communicator had been taken when they decided she was useless. A soft sound came from the trees. A clicking sound. Like claws tapping against rock, Lyra froze. Her large black eyes scanned the shadows. The jungle was full of movement. Vines shifting, insects crawling, mist rolling between roots. She took one step backward and her foot hit a fallen metal crate. The sound echoed loudly. Then, silence again. Lyra's breathing grew faster. She remembered the stories her people told, of the creatures that lived in this jungle. Beasts that could melt through steel or shadows that swallowed travelers whole. She couldn't stay out here. She had to find cover. She picked up a broken piece of metal from the ground, and it was heavy, but it felt safer in her hand than nothing. Slowly, she moved through the glowing plants until she found a hollow under a massive red tree. The roots made a small cave, big enough for her to crawl inside. She hid there as the rain began to fall. The drops glowed faintly, leaving trails of light across her arms. For a moment it almost looked beautiful. Almost. Lyra pulled her knees to her chest. She tried to stay quiet, but her thoughts screamed inside her mind. Why did they hate me? Why was I born this way? Her chest hurt. She remembered the faces of her crew, laughing, pointing, turning away. The same faces that now left her to die. Tears ran down her cheeks. "I don't want to die here," she whispered. Outside, the jungle roared. Something heavy walked past her hiding place, Renee's slow, careful steps crushing the glowing ferns. She held her breath, her heart hammering like drums. She could see only its shadow through the roots, a tall shape with a long tail and bright red eyes. The creature stopped. It sniffed the air. Then it turned its head toward her cave. Lyra's blood turned to ice. It took one more step. And another. The ground shook under its weight. She bit her lip, holding back a cry. The creature's head leaned closer, and then from far away a loud explosion echoed through the forest. The creature lifted its head and roared in anger, running toward the noise. Lyra stayed still for a long time after it was gone. The silence felt heavier than the storm. When she finally crawled out of the hollow, the jungle was dark. The only light came from the glowing moss and the broken pieces of the crashed ship. She walked toward the wreck, shivering from fear and cold. She looked up at the night sky, the place where her people had disappeared. "I will not die," she whispered softly, "even if they think I'm ugly, even if no one wants me." The wind answered her with a low howl that echoed through the alien jungle. Then, far behind her, a faint metallic sound rang. Click. Clank, click. Like metal boots stepping on stone, someone or something else was in the jungle. The alien jungle never slept. Every hour something moved, wings flapping, leaves whispering, claws scratching against bark. For Lyra, every sound felt like a warning. She had survived the night hiding under the roots of a red tree, but now as the twin suns rose in the green sky, she saw how dangerous this world really was. The air shimmered with heat and every plant looked alive, bending, twisting, even breathing. Some trees had mouths instead of flowers. Others dripped glowing liquid that burned holes in the ground. Lyra stepped carefully. Her gray feet sank into the soft moss. Her stomach ached from hunger. She hadn't eaten since the day before she was left behind. She searched the jungle floor looking for anything that didn't try to bite her first. After hours of walking, she found small blue fruits growing near a stream. They smelled sweet. She took one bite and instantly spat it out. The taste was poison. Her tongue burned and she ran to the water to rinse her mouth. As she knelt by the stream, she saw her reflection for the first time since the abandonment. Her face looked tired and dirty. The marks of tears had dried on her cheeks. Her big eyes, once filled with hope, now looked empty. She whispered to herself, "Maybe they were right. Maybe I really am nothing." The jungle answered with silence. Then a rustling sound came from across the stream. She froze. The tall grass bent slowly, one stalk at a time. Something large was moving toward her. She picked up a sharp rock and held it tight, her hands trembling. The grass parted. A small creature crawled out. 4 legs, thin like sticks, with a round head and bright silver eyes. It was no bigger than a cat. It stopped and looked at her, sniffing the air. Lyra sighed in relief. "You're not scary," she said softly. The little creature tilted its head, curious. It made a soft chirping sound and stepped closer. But then, the ground beneath it cracked open. A huge flower with metal-like petals shot up, swallowing the creature whole in one bite. Lyra screamed and stumbled backward. The flower crunched and glowing green liquid dripped down its stem. Her heart pounded. She ran through vines, through mist, through sharp leaves that cut her skin. She didn't stop until her legs gave out. She fell beside a fallen log, breathing hard. The jungle was quiet again, but she knew something had changed. Now she wasn't just scared. She was angry. "They think I'm weak," she whispered, her voice shaking. "They think I'll die. I'll show them." She began to collect things, strong vines, sharp stones, bits of metal from the crash. It took her all day, but she built a small shelter against a tree trunk. She used the vines to tie broken metal together, forming walls. She covered the top with wide red leaves that glowed softly at night. When she finished, she sat inside, watching the alien sky turn dark again. The stars were bright and 2 moons floated above the jungle. For a moment she felt peace, then click, clank, click, that sound again. The sound she had heard the night before. She stood up slowly. The sound came from outside, footsteps, heavy ones. She held her sharp rock tightly and peeked through a gap in her shelter. Between the glowing trees she saw movement, a shadow walking on 2 legs. Metal shimmered under the moonlight. It didn't look like any alien she knew. Its shape was strange. Straight posture, broad shoulders, strong arms. It was tall, taller than her crew members had ever been. It stopped and turned its head. A red light blinked from the side of its helmet. Lyra gasped softly and stepped back. The figure moved closer. Her shelter creaked. She held her breath, praying it wouldn't notice her. But the sound of footsteps grew louder, and then it stopped, right outside. For a long moment there was silence. Lyra's heart beat so hard it hurt. She could see the shadow through the leaf wall and standing still, just breathing. Then something strange happened. The figure didn't attack. It placed something on the ground, a small square object that blinked with a soft blue light. Then it turned around and walked away, disappearing into the trees. Lyra waited several minutes before crawling out. The blinking object still sat there. Carefully she touched it. It was warm and smelled like food. She opened the small metal box. Inside were dry brown pieces, alien to her but edible. She sniffed one, then tasted it carefully. It was rough, salty, but safe. Her body filled with warmth. She looked around the jungle, whispering, "Who are you?" No answer. Only the sound of distant thunder. That night, for the first time, Lyra slept without fear. But in her dreams she saw flashes, metal, smoke, and fire. A human voice shouting in pain. And behind it all, a strange image of a soldier falling from the sky. When she woke, morning light filled the forest. The metal box was still there, now empty. On the ground beside it, a new footprint had appeared, deep, heavy, and human. Lyra touched it with her hand. "You saved me," she whispered, not knowing who she was talking to. "But Aki, why?" Then she stood, looking toward the jungle where the footprints led. She took a deep breath. For the first time since she was abandoned, she felt a spark of hope. She followed the tracks. Behind her, unseen in the shadows, the red eyes of a massive creature blinked open. It watched her move through the forest and began to follow. The jungle was silent that morning. No birds sang, no insects moved. Even the wind seemed to be holding its breath. Lyra followed the footprints carefully. Deep, wide marks pressed into the soft ground. They didn't belong to any alien she knew. These prints were heavy, human, and perfect in shape. She had heard stories about humans. Her people called them the Terrans, brutal creatures from a distant blue world. They were said to be strong, violent, and impossible to kill. Some aliens even said humans had no fear. Lyra wasn't sure if those stories were true, but right now, following those strange steps, she hoped they were lies. The trail led her deeper into the glowing forest. Trees rose high like towers. Strange blue mist rolled between the roots. The air smelled like metal and rain. She walked slowly, one step at a time, clutching the sharp rock she had kept since the night she was abandoned. After an hour, she found a broken metal object half buried in the mud, a black helmet with a cracked glass front. She brushed off the dirt and saw a faded human symbol on the side, a white eagle with open wings. Her heart started to beat faster. "Human," she whispered. The footprints continued beyond the helmet toward a cliffside covered in thick vines. At the base of the cliff, she found a small cave entrance. A strange sound came from inside. Not the roar of a beast, but a deep, steady breathing. Lyra crouched low, creeping closer. The air inside the cave was warm, and she could smell smoke. Real fire. Someone was living here. When her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she saw him. A man sat near a small fire, his body covered in a dark gray armor suit. His face was pale with a short beard and tired eyes. A bandage wrapped around his shoulder, stained with blood. His weapon, a large rifle, lay beside him. The firelight flickered across his face, making him look both strong and broken. Lyra froze. She didn't know if she should run or speak. The man turned his head suddenly, his eyes locked onto her. "Who's there?" His voice was rough, deep, and human. Lyra's breath caught. She raised her hands quickly, showing she had no weapon. I'm not enemy," she said in broken words. The soldier stared at her, confused, maybe even shocked. "You speak English?" She shook her head. "Little. I learn." He relaxed slightly, lowering his weapon. "You're not one of them?" She stepped closer, trembling. "I am left here, alone." The man nodded slowly, understanding. "Same," he said. He looked down at the fire. "My name's Ryan, Captain Ryan Holt, Terran Defense Force." He pointed to himself, then to her. "You?" "Lyra," she whispered. Ryan gave a small smile, the first kind face she had seen in weeks. "All right, Lyra," he said softly. "You look like you've been through hell." Lyra tilted her head. "Hell?" He chuckled lightly. "Bad place, pain, fear," she nodded. "Yes. This jungle is hell." For the first time, they both laughed quietly. Two survivors, enemies by race, but united by loneliness. Ryan reached into his bag and pulled out a small packet of dried food. He opened it and handed a piece to her. Lyra hesitated, sniffing it carefully, then took a bite. It was salty and rough, but she ate every piece. "Thank you," she said softly. Ryan nodded. "You're welcome. You look hungry." As they sat in silence, she studied him. His skin was scarred, his uniform torn. Yet there was something in his eyes. Something strong and kind. Humans were supposed to be monsters, but this one looked tired, not cruel. After a while, Ryan said quietly, "My ship crashed here 2 months ago. Everyone else died. I thought I was the only one left." Lyra's heart ached. She understood that pain too well. "Your people leave you?" He looked at the fire, his jaw tight. "They didn't have a choice." Then his voice softened. "But they will come back. I have to survive until they do." Lyra nodded slowly. "I also survive, but not for them. For me." He looked at her with surprise, then respect. "That's good," he said. "That's strength." A sudden roar broke the quiet. It came from deep within the jungle, a monstrous sound that shook the air. Both of them jumped to their feet. Ryan grabbed his rifle. "What the hell was that?" Lyra's eyes went wide. "Big creature. Hunts here. I see before." The roar came again, closer this time. The cave walls vibrated. Ryan moved toward the entrance and looked outside. Trees were shaking in the distance. Something massive was moving through the forest. Ryan turned back quickly. "We need to move now." Lyra hesitated. "Where?" He checked his weapon. "Away from here. Find higher ground." But before they could take a step, the creature appeared, crashing through the jungle like a storm. Its body was covered in black scales that glowed with red light. Metal plates were fused into its skin and its eyes burned like fire. Lyra gasped. "It's here!" The monster roared again, smashing trees as it ran toward them. Ryan raised his rifle and fired. Boom! Boom, boom! The shots echoed through the jungle. The creature staggered but didn't fall. It turned its glowing eyes toward the cave. "Run!" Ryan shouted. Lyra grabbed his arm, pulling him deeper into the tunnel behind the fire. They ran through narrow stone paths as the beast's claws tore through the entrance, shaking the ground. Rocks fell. The air filled with dust and the creature's roar. When they finally stopped, both were gasping for breath. Ryan leaned against the wall, his hand on his wounded shoulder. Lyra looked at him, eyes wide with fear and amazement. "You fight, monster," she said softly. "Alone?" Ryan gave a tired smile. "Not alone anymore." Lyra didn't know why, but her heart warmed. For the first time since being abandoned, she didn't feel completely lost. Outside, the jungle roared again. The hunt was far from over. But now Lyra wasn't the only one fighting to survive. The night fell heavy over the jungle. Cold mist rolled between the glowing trees, turning everything into shadows and whispers. Somewhere far behind, the monster roared again, and a deep, metallic sound that echoed through the forest like thunder. Lyra and Captain Ryan had escaped through the cave tunnels and found a small valley filled with fog. The air smelled wet and electric. Every few seconds, lightning flashed silently above the green clouds, painting the jungle in pale light. Ryan sat on a fallen log, checking his weapon. His shoulder wound had reopened and blood darkened his uniform. Lyra tore a piece of her cloth and wrapped it tightly around his arm. He winced. "You don't have to." "I do," she said simply. Her large eyes were calm now, focused. "You helped me. I help you." Ryan gave a weak smile. "Fair deal." They stayed quiet for a while, listening to the night. The jungle hissed and clicked, full of unseen life. Every sound made Lyra tense up, but Ryan sat still, his eyes scanning the mist. Why are you not afraid?" she asked softly. He looked at her and shrugged. "I am afraid. Every soldier is. We just learned to move anyway." She nodded slowly. "You are brave." Ryan looked at her for a long moment. "So are you, Lyra. You survived here alone. Most soldiers wouldn't last 2 days in this jungle." Lyra looked away, embarrassed. "They said I was weak, ugly, not worth saving." Ryan frowned. "Then they were fools." The words hit her harder than any weapon. For a second, she couldn't breathe. No one had ever said that before. Not once in her life. Before she could answer, the jungle went silent. Every creature stopped moving. Even the mist seemed to freeze. Ryan stood up fast, raising his rifle. "It's here." A low vibration shook the ground. Trees swayed and glowing dust fell from the branches. Lyra grabbed a spear she had made earlier from bone and vines. She wasn't strong, but she was quick and desperate. Then they saw it. The beast moved like a storm through the fog, tall as a building, black scales glimmering like metal. Its mouth was full of glowing teeth and cables pulsed beneath its skin. Its red eyes burned through the mist like twin suns, Ryan whispered. "Half creature, half machine," Lyra whispered back. "It hunts by smell." Ryan nodded, remembering. "Then we hide our scent." He pulled out a small grenade-sized canister from his belt, smoke cover. He pressed the button and thick gray gas spread across the ground, mixing with the mist. "Move," he ordered. They ran through the fog, staying low. The ground was wet and soft, each step leaving deep prints. The creature roared, confused for a moment, and then sniffed the air and turned toward them. It was learning. They reached an old alien structure, a broken ruin covered in moss. Ryan pushed open a fallen door and they slipped inside. The air smelled of rust and stone. Inside, strange markings glowed faintly on the walls. It looked ancient, maybe hundreds of years old. Lyra touched one of the symbols and a panel lit up, revealing a hidden chamber filled with old tech fragments. Ryan whistled quietly. Looks like a power core chamber. Maybe we can use this. Use how? Lyra asked, breathing hard. Ryan examined the glowing crystal tubes. If these still work, I can overload one. Make it explode. Big enough to hurt that thing. Lyra's eyes widened. You want to fight it? Ryan reloaded his weapon. I don't run forever. For a moment, she stared at him. This human, tired and bleeding, still talking about fighting monsters twice his size. And something changed inside her. She realized humans weren't monsters at all. They were something else entirely. Stubborn, fearless, impossible. I will help, she said. Ryan nodded. Good, you place the traps. I'll set the charge. They worked fast. Lyra laid vines coated with glowing sap near the entrance, sticky enough to slow the beast. Ryan connected the power core to his detonator, his hands shaking from blood loss. When it was done, they hid behind a large stone pillar waiting. Minutes passed. Then, the roar returned. The creature smashed through the forest, crashing toward the ruins. Trees fell and the ground split beneath its claws. It sniffed, searching for them. When it stepped inside, its claws hit the vines and it stuck. Now, Ryan shouted. Lyra threw a sharp bone spear straight at its face. It hit the creature's eye and it screamed, thrashing violently. Ryan pressed the detonator and a blinding flash filled the chamber. The power core exploded, sending fire and lightning through the air. The blast threw them backward. The entire ruin shook as dust and light covered everything. When the smoke cleared, the creature was gone. Burned, maybe dead. Ryan lay on the ground, coughing, his armor cracked. Lyra crawled to him. You alive? He gave a weak laugh. I've had worse Mondays. She didn't understand the word, but she smiled anyway. They climbed out of the ruined structure as the first light of dawn broke through the clouds. The jungle was quiet again, only the wind moving through the glowing leaves. Ryan looked at her and said softly, You're not ugly, Lyra. You just look different. That's all. Lyra froze. The words echoed inside her like music. For a long time she couldn't speak. Then she smiled, and a small, trembling smile. Different maybe means special. Ryan nodded. Exactly. But their moment of peace didn't last. Far in the distance, another roar answered. Deeper, louder, angrier. Ryan sighed. Looks like it had a friend. Lyra looked toward the mist, her eyes burning with new courage. Then we fight again. And for the first time since her own people abandoned her, she wasn't afraid of what came next. The sun never truly rose on this planet. It only changed colors. Now the sky glowed orange and green as mist drifted over the jungle floor. Broken trees still smoked from the explosion that nearly killed them. Lyra and Captain Ryan stood among the ruins, both breathing hard. The air was thick with dust and the smell of burned metal. They had killed one monster. But now, another roar thundered across the valley. Deeper, angrier, closer. It shook the ground beneath their feet. Ryan tightened his grip on his rifle. It's not over, he said quietly. Lyra's eyes scanned the jungle. It hunts for us. For revenge, Ryan nodded. Then we finish this together. They didn't have much time. The creature was already near. Its roars echoed between the cliffs and trees toppled one by one. Ryan limped to the fallen ruin and pulled open a metal crate half buried in rubble. Inside were fragments of alien tech. Energy cells, cracked armor, and strange glowing crystals. Can we use this? Lyra asked, kneeling beside him. Ryan smiled faintly. We'll have to. We don't get second chances out here. He connected 2 energy cells to his damaged rifle, boosting its power. Sparks jumped across the weapon's barrel. Might blow my arm off, he muttered. But it'll hit harder. Lyra helped him build traps again, this time using broken steel shards from the ruins and glowing vines. She moved quickly, her hands steady, her eyes fierce. The girl who once trembled in the dark now worked like a warrior. Ryan noticed. You've changed, he said. Lyra didn't look up. I was afraid before now. I am angry, Ryan nodded. Good. Anger keeps you alive. Minutes later, the ground began to tremble again. A massive shape moved between the glowing trees, bigger than the last beast, its scales black with red veins of light pulsing beneath. Steam hissed from vents along its neck. It wasn't just an animal. It was part machine, part nightmare. Ryan whispered, I think it's tracking us by sound. Lyra nodded. Then we give it sound. She picked up a piece of metal and threw it into the opposite direction. It clanged loudly against a rock. The creature instantly turned and smashed through the jungle toward the noise. Ryan took the chance, raised his rifle and fired. Boom! The energy shot struck the beast's side, exploding in sparks. It screamed, under a mix of metal tearing and animal pain. It turned, eyes glowing brighter, and charged at them. Move! Ryan shouted. They ran through the trees as the creature's claws tore into the earth behind them. Trees splintered, vines snapped, and the air filled with flying dirt. Lyra slipped, but Ryan grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. Keep going! They reached a rocky ledge overlooking the jungle below. The drop was steep, but there was nowhere else to run. The creature burst through the mist, massive jaws snapping, tail smashing the ground like a whip. Ryan fired again and again, each blast lighting the air with blue fire. But the beast kept coming. Out of ammo, he growled, throwing the rifle aside. Lyra picked up a long metal spear she had made earlier. Her hands shook, but her eyes were steady. We fight here, she said. No running, Ryan grinned. That's my kind of plan. The beast roared and lunged. Ryan rolled aside, grabbing a fallen cable and wrapping it around the creature's leg. Lyra, now! She ran forward, leapt onto a rock, and stabbed the spear deep into the creature's neck. The spear sparked as alien blood sprayed across the ground, glowing like molten lava. The beast screamed, swinging its head violently. Lyra flew through the air and crashed hard into the mud. Lyra! Ryan yelled. He ran to her side. She coughed, blood on her lip, but still tried to stand. I'm fine, she said weakly. Finish it. Ryan saw the glowing crystals on the beast's chest and its weak point. He grabbed a damaged power cell from his belt, flicked the switch, and sprinted straight toward the monster. The creature saw him coming and roared, its breath hot enough to burn. But Ryan didn't stop. He jumped onto its back, climbed up its spine, and jammed the power cell into the glowing crack near its heart. Come on, you ugly thing, he shouted. The cell beeped once, twice, and then exploded. The blast threw Ryan backward off the creature as fire and lightning filled the sky. The shockwave knocked Lyra to the ground. When the smoke cleared, the jungle was silent again. The beast lay still, half-burned, its red eyes fading into darkness. Lyra crawled toward Ryan, who was lying motionless on the ground. His armor was shattered, his face covered in dirt and blood. Ryan, she cried. Please, wake up. He coughed weakly, opening one eye. Still alive, he whispered with a smile. Told you. Bad idea. Lyra laughed through tears. You are crazy. Yeah, he said softly, but it worked. She helped him sit up. The jungle around them glowed with strange beauty, broken, but alive. Smoke rose into the orange sky like a ghost. Ryan looked at her and said, You didn't run. You stayed. Lyra looked at him with shining eyes. No one stayed for me before I will not leave you. Ryan touched her shoulder gently. Then maybe, Lyra, you're the strongest person I've ever met. A quiet moment passed. The wind carried away the smoke. But then in the distance another sound echoed. Not a roar this time, but a deep hum. Machines. Engines. Lyra's eyes widened. Your people. Ryan listened carefully. Could be, or something worse. They looked at each other, tired, wounded, but alive. And both knew the fight wasn't over yet. As the jungle mist thickened again, Ryan whispered, If we die here, at least we die fighting. Lyra smiled faintly. No, we live. We survive. And as the mist swallowed them both, the distant sky began to glow with the light of ships descending, friends or enemies. No one knew. But the war for survival had only just begun. The jungle sky burned red that night. Far above the trees, lights flashed through the clouds in blue, white, and violet. Something big was coming down from orbit. Engines screamed in the distance. Lyra and Captain Ryan stood on a rocky hill watching the horizon tremble. Smoke rose from the place where the last creature had fallen. But the peace didn't last. The ground started shaking again. Lyra grabbed a tree for balance. What is that sound? Ryan raised his broken rifle, eyes scanning the darkness. Engines, he said quietly. But not human. From deep within the jungle, a huge shadow emerged, larger than the others, covered in black armor and glowing red lines. Its face looked like a skull made of steel. This one wasn't just a beast. It was built, a war machine left behind by whoever made this planet. The monster's eyes focused on them and the air turned hot. Ryan's heart sank. Oh no. It's locking on us, the creature roared, and its chest opened, revealing spinning energy coils charging to fire. Run! Ryan shouted. They jumped behind a fallen cliff as a beam of red plasma exploded across the clearing. Trees vaporized in seconds. The blast wave threw both of them to the ground. Lyra's ears rang. The world turned white for a moment. Ryan struggled to his knees, bleeding again. His weapon was destroyed. We can't fight that thing head on, he gasped. We need another way. Lyra looked around desperately, smoke, ruins, and the broken alien reactor nearby. Then she remembered something Ryan had said days ago. A power core can destroy half a mountain if it goes critical. Her eyes widened. The reactor. We can make it explode. Ryan followed her gaze. The damaged reactor was inside the alien ruin they had camped near earlier, still glowing faintly from the last fight. It's unstable, he said. We could overload it, Lyra nodded. It will kill the beast, he hesitated. And maybe us too. She looked at him, calm but determined. Better to die fighting than be hunted forever. Ryan gave a small smile. You're starting to sound like a soldier. Lyra smiled faintly. You taught me. They ran through the burning jungle toward the old ruin. The beast followed, smashing trees, roaring like a storm. Fire lit the path ahead. Lightning from the reactor flashed through the cracks in the walls as they entered the chamber. Ryan limped to the control panel, typing commands into the alien interface. Sparks flew from the console. It's still active, he said. We can set it to blow, but once it starts, we can't stop it. Lyra looked at the glowing crystal heart of the reactor. Then we don't stop. Ryan turned to her. You'll die if you stay here. So will you, she said softly. But if we run, it will follow. Someone must make sure it ends. He clenched his fists. I'll do it, she shook her head. No, you're hurt. And your people will come. They need you, go. Ryan's voice broke. Lyra? She stepped closer and touched his hand. You saved me when everyone left me. You showed me I am not ugly. Let me save you now. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Two broken souls from different worlds, standing in the heart of a dying jungle. Then Ryan nodded slowly. His voice was low. I'll never forget you, Lyra smiled sadly. Just tell them. The ugly one saved you. Ryan's eyes glistened, but there was no time. The ground shook and the creature had arrived. It burst through the ruins, fire spilling from its mouth. Its claws scraped against stone as it roared, searching for them. Ryan grabbed his rifle, even broken, and stood between Lyra and the beast. You've got 30 seconds before it reaches full charge, he yelled. Lyra climbed onto the reactor platform, her hands glowing as she pulled down the control levers. The energy inside began to spiral faster, humming like thunder. Sparks burned her skin, but she didn't stop. The monster lunged. Ryan fired again and again. Every shot a burst of light in the dark. Come on, over here, you metal freak. The beast turned, slamming its tail across the floor. The impact sent Ryan flying across the chamber. He hit the wall hard, pain ripping through his body. Blood filled his mouth, but he forced himself up again. Keep going, Lyra. She looked back at him, eyes full of tears and courage. Thank you, Ryan. The reactor core blazed white-hot. Lyra reached out, pressing her hand against the glowing crystal. I am not weak, she whispered. I am not ugly. I am alive. The light swallowed her whole. Ryan screamed her name as the entire ruin exploded in a storm of fire and lightning. The shockwave ripped through the jungle, flattening everything for miles. The sound reached the heavens. Then silence followed. When Ryan opened his eyes, the sky above was pale blue for the first time since he crashed. The air smelled like rain. The ruins were gone, replaced by a crater of glass and ash. He was alive, barely. His armor was in pieces, his body bruised and burned. But the monster was gone. Nothing remained but smoke. He crawled to the edge of the crater and stared at the center. Something shimmered among the ashes, a single glowing stone, the same color as Lyra's eyes. He picked it up carefully. It was warm. Ryan sat there in silence as rescue ships finally descended from the clouds above. The engines of the Terran fleet roared across the sky. Soldiers rushed out, calling his name, but he didn't move. He just looked at the stone and whispered, "She did it." The jungle was quiet again. The nightmare was over, but her memory, her strength, burned brighter than any fire. The jungle was silent after the storm. Ash drifted through the air like soft snow, falling over the blackened ground. What was once full of glowing trees and life was now a wasteland of smoke and glass. The explosion had ended everything: the monster, the ruins, the nightmare. And somewhere near the crater, Captain Ryan Holt lay on the ground, barely breathing. The sky above shimmered with pale light. For the first time in weeks, the clouds had cleared, revealing the stars, bright, endless, beautiful. A faint hum echoed from the distance. Engines, ships. Ryan forced his eyes open. His helmet was gone, his uniform torn. The world spun around him, but he saw them. 3 silver ships breaking through the atmosphere, descending fast. Human rescue teams. They had finally come. He smiled weakly. "You made it," he whispered, not sure if he meant them. Or her. A shadow moved beside him, a glowing shape lying half-buried in the dust. Ryan crawled closer. His arms shook, his lungs burned, but he kept going. When he reached it, he froze. It was Lyra. Her body was covered in silver dust, her skin now shining faintly with light. The gray roughness that once made her look ugly was gone, replaced by patterns of soft glowing lines across her face, like the jungle had gifted her new life. Her chest rose weakly. She was breathing. Ryan's heart jumped. "You're alive." He lifted her gently, brushing the ash from her hair. "You did it, Lyra. You saved us." Her eyes opened slowly. They were brighter than ever, glowing gold. She looked at him and smiled weakly. "You came back." Ryan laughed softly, even through pain. "Couldn't leave you again, could I?" She blinked slowly, trying to understand the strange machines now landing nearby. "Your people?" "Yeah," he said, looking at the ships descending with roaring engines. "My people." Soldiers in white armor ran toward them, shouting and scanning the wreckage. One of them knelt beside Ryan, eyes wide. "Captain Holt?" "Sir, we thought you were dead." Ryan shook his head. "Almost." He looked at Lyra. "But she saved me." The soldier stared at her in confusion. "Sir, is that an alien?" Ryan smiled faintly. "That's Lyra, the reason we're still alive." Medics rushed forward, scanning her with glowing instruments. The readings shocked them. Her biology was changing, fusing with the planet's energy. "She's stabilizing," one medic said. Somehow, the reactor energy merged with her cells. Ryan didn't understand the science, but he could see the truth. She was becoming something new, something stronger. The jungle hadn't killed her. It had reborn her. As they carried her and Ryan to the shuttle, the human commander approached. "Captain, you'll both be debriefed when we reach the fleet, but whatever happened here, the energy signatures are off the charts. You might have stopped something catastrophic." Ryan nodded tiredly. "We just stopped a monster," he said softly. "And she did most of it." Hours later, high above the planet, Ryan sat in the medical bay of the rescue ship. The stars outside glowed against the dark window. Machines hummed quietly. He looked at the bed beside him. Lyra lay there, still asleep, her skin glowing softly under the lights. Even unconscious, she looked peaceful, not afraid, not broken. Free. A nurse walked over and said gently, "She'll live. Whatever she's made of now, it's repairing itself faster than human tech can measure." Ryan smiled. She always was a fighter. He reached out and held her hand. "You were never ugly," he whispered. "You were beautiful. We were just too blind to see it." Days passed. Lyra woke slowly, her strength returning. She could stand, walk, even breathe the ship's air. The humans treated her carefully, curious but kind. Some stared in silence. Others smiled when she passed. But none of them called her names. None of them turned away. Ryan spent every day beside her, showing her the stars through the glass. "That's Earth," he told her once, pointing at a small blue light. "My home." She looked at it for a long time. "Your sky is beautiful. You'd like it there," he said. "We don't have glowing trees, though." She laughed softly. "Maybe I bring some," he grinned. "I'd like that." One evening, as the ship prepared to leave orbit, the commander entered their room. "Captain Holt," he said, "Command wants to know what to classify this incident as." Ryan looked at him. Call it a survival report. The commander raised a brow. And her? Ryan turned to Lyra. She stood by the window, the stars reflecting in her golden eyes. She's not a threat, Ryan said. She's proof. Proof of what? The commander asked. Ryan smiled faintly. That even in the darkest worlds, kindness can survive. The commander nodded slowly and left. The door closed, leaving them alone with the quiet hum of the ship. Lyra turned to him. What now? Ryan looked at her, the faint smile never leaving his face. Now we live. You and me. Maybe we teach both our worlds what it means to care. She looked back at the stars. You think your people will accept me? Ryan shrugged. They didn't accept me at first either. She smiled. Then maybe we both were outsiders. Not anymore, he said softly. As the ship moved away from the burned planet, light from the twin suns spread across the window. It painted everything gold. Lyra watched the jungle world shrink behind them, remembering every moment, the pain, the fear, the fire, and the human who refused to leave her behind. She whispered quietly, Goodbye, home. Ryan looked at her. Not goodbye, just a new beginning. The stars stretched as the ship jumped into light speed, leaving the alien world far behind. 2 survivors, 1 human, one once called ugly, now united by courage, sacrifice, and something deeper than either world had ever known. And in that endless sea of stars, their story began again, not about fear or survival, but about what makes us truly human.